In this video I'm going to discuss the last of the Holy Trinity of zoom lenses. The one which in some ways is my favourite of them all. The one which I find the most creative. The lens I am talking about, of course, is the Telephoto Zoom. But before I begin talking about it, let's have a look at the kind of images you can actually take using one. I've just taken a couple of shots. The first one using the Canon 24-105 at the 24mm side, and then I've used the Canon 70-300 at the 300mm side, just to sort of demonstrate how much of a difference there is between 24mm and 300mm. Now that might sound blatantly obvious, but sometimes it's nice to actually see it, see the same scene and see actually how much pull you can get using a telephoto lens. Now the beauty of a telephoto lens is probably quite obvious. It means you can zoom in. It means that things that are distance away can actually become closer, fill the frame more, and you can isolate details. And that's the key really with this lens. It's about the fact that you can isolate details, and for me that is its real strength. Now another beauty of the lens is, in complete contrast to the 16-35mm wide angle zoom, which exaggerates perspective, the telephoto zoom around the 70-200, 70-300 mark will actually compress perspective. And that's great because you can have a mountain range, you can use a zoom lens and you can compress the peaks down. And all of a sudden it seems far more dramatic. Now there's an argument that you could actually hike up into the hills and take your standard 24-105 lens and take mountain shots that way. And you can, and they look beautiful. But sometimes that's just not feasible. You know, think about snow-covered mountains. Sometimes, unless you're a mountaineer, you might not actually physically be able to get up there. Use the 70-300, use it from ground level if you need be, and you can pull those peaks in, you can fill your frame, and you can make really nice shots. Last year I went to New Zealand, and I was quite surprised that about 40% of my favourite shots were taken with a 70-300 equivalent lens. Which really, again, speaks volumes. The complete opposite of the situation of the wide angle zoom when I took it to New Zealand, which I didn't use. I actually found that having a zoom was invaluable. And to be honest, I wouldn't be without one. And if weight allows, I will always pack it. So really, for my setup, I could quite easily get away with just a standard zoom and a telephoto zoom, and that would cover me for most things. So the 16-35 wide angle is a bit of a luxury really. I don't use it very often, but you know, when required it's there. Back in the first of these 3 videos, I discussed the benefits of an f4 lens over an f2.8 and vice versa. Now with the other 2 zooms, the difference between f2.8 and f4 in weight is not as drastic as the difference between an f2.8 and an f4 in a 70-200. To put it blunt, a 70-200 2.8 is massive and heavy. Amazing image quality, but you don't want to be taking it up the hills. So I really suggest, for this sort of thing, if you're shooting landscapes, the f4 is more than adequate. And in fact, the Canon 70-200 f4 is a bargain buy. I believe it's the cheapest L series lens, and the image quality is absolutely staggering. I'm using the 70-300 on the Canon EOS R simply because I wanted something a little bit smaller. So it's heavier, but it's a little bit more compact, and it fits a little bit better with using a mirrorless body. But if I was using a DSLR, I would definitely be going for the f4 every time. It's a little bit faster than my 70-300 as well, which I believe is only 5.6. As you're probably starting to realise, the whole thing about the Holy Trinity is the versatility that it will give you. But also, sometimes you may have to have trade-offs. You know, in an ideal world, I would probably have a 16-35 f4, a 24-70 2.8 as my all-rounder, and the 70-300 L series, which I'm using. But there's no 2.8 available yet for the Canon EOS R, so I'm having to do with the 24-105, which is not bad. You know, it's a fantastic lens, so I'm not complaining. And it will be lighter than the 2.8 when it comes out. Out of all of the Holy Trinity lenses, the one that I most enjoy using handheld is the Telephoto Zoom. And as such, it's quite important for me for it to have image stabilising on it. My 70-300 there has, and that's great. You know, you're going to want to use a fairly fast shutter speed if you haven't got image stabilising, which obviously that can be quite limited in low light. So I would recommend getting one with image stabilising if you can, but going back to the size of lenses, the f2.8 with image stabilising is huge. So again, it brings you back to the f4. But I think with the Telephoto Zoom, it's quite nice to walk around a little bit, because even the slightest angle can make a huge difference to the actual final shot. You know, your composition will change even if you just move a couple of feet left or right. So again, it's nice using it handheld. Obviously sometimes, you know, you need to bolt it down to a tripod to just maximise that image quality. But other times you may want to just grab it and just take shots. When I was in New Zealand, I basically had a body set up on the passenger seat with the Telephoto Zoom on, and I'd literally just pull over and I'd just grab shots as I saw interesting light. If you're planning to use the Telephoto Zoom on a tripod, I really recommend that you get a tripod collar if it will fit your lens. It does for most zoom lenses, to be honest, and it's quite obvious. Really, the problem with using a telephoto lens on a tripod is the fact that they're quite heavy, which is not an issue if you're shooting in a landscape orientation. But if you want to do a portrait composition, what you'll find is that once you tip it up, that your tripod will become a little bit lopsided, so just slightly off balance. But with a tripod collar, you can literally undo it and swing your body around, which makes life a lot simpler. And it also means you can shoot a landscape composition, and then if you want to do a portrait, just switch it round, lock it back down, take it, done. As I said in another video, I sometimes recommend you just go out with just one lens and just work those focal lengths. And in that instance, I suggested you went out with the standard zoom. Well, I also recommend that you go out with a telephoto and just work with a telephoto for a day. It's amazing the difference it can make to your photography. I hope you've enjoyed this series of videos. Hit the subscribe button if you'd like to see more content, and I will see you next week. Bye.